Hello and welcome. Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Gautam Roy, and coming up in the next hour, Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds bilateral talks with Ukraine's President Zelensky in Kyiv, 4 pacts inked. Prime Minister reiterates India's willingness to contribute to facilitate any early return of peace. US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell indicates an imminent rate cut at the Jackson Hole Annual Economic Conference, says time has come for policy to adjust. The World Health Organization says its partners can start buying Mpox vaccines before they are approved by the UN Health Agency to get the inoculations to Africa faster. Over 25 people have been killed after a bus with an Indian registration number heading to Kathmandu plunged into a river in Nepal's Tanahun district. And Paris Olympian Archana Kamath quits table tennis. India's TT star has decided to pursue higher studies abroad. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has successfully wrapped up a maiden visit for any top Indian leader to conflict-ridden Ukraine. It saw him holding bilateral talks with President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv, which led to the exchange of 4 agreements in the fields of agriculture and humanitarian assistance, among others. The leaders also came up with a joint statement where Prime Minister Modi reiterated India's willingness to contribute in all possible ways to facilitate an early return to peace.
Historic move, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv, marking the first ever visit by an Indian leader to Ukraine. The bilateral meeting held at the Mariinsky Palace, where Prime Minister Narendra Modi reiterated India's support for dialogue and diplomacy to restore peace and stability.
मैं आपको विश्वास दिलाता हूं कि मानवीय दृष्टिकोण से भी जिस प्रकार की मदद की आवश्यकता होगी, भारत हमेशा हमेशा आपके साथ खड़ा रहेगा और 2 कदम आगे चलेगा.
During his visit, Prime Minister Modi also toured the multimedia martyrologist exposition on children at the National Museum of History of Ukraine. Accompanied by President Zelensky, he was deeply moved. As a gesture of respect, he placed a toy in their memory and expressed his deep sorrow over the tragic loss of young lives.
हमने जो दूसरा मार्ग चुना, वो दूसरा मार्ग है युद्ध से दूर रहने का. हम बहुत ही कन्विक्शन के साथ युद्ध से दूर रहे हैं, लेकिन इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि हम तटस्थ थे. हम न्यूट्रल नहीं थे. हम पहले दिन से ही पक्षकार रहे हैं और हमारा पक्ष है शांति का.
Prime Minister Modi also paid homage to Mahatma Gandhi at his statue in Kiev. He highlighted the enduring relevance of Gandhi's message of peace in addressing global challenges. Post-bilateral talk, India and Ukraine also held a delegation-level talk, where leaders held discussions on trade, defense, pharmaceuticals, agriculture and education. India and Ukraine also exchanged agreements in the field of agriculture and food industry, cooperation in the field of medical product regulation, Indian humanitarian grant assistance for high-impact community development projects, and in the field of cultural cooperation. India is providing medical assistance to Ukraine, which includes indigenous portable hospital, Bhishma cubes, and other medical equipments.
As of today, we have agreed on the 4 documents that will be signed during this truly historic visit between Ukraine and India. These are regarding the medical field, the agricultural cooperation, humanitarian dimension, and I'm grateful for all of this, and I'm happy to see you, Mr. Prime Minister, and glory to Ukraine.
Earlier in the day, The Indian community in Ukraine warmly welcomed Prime Minister Modi. This landmark visit symbolizes a significant chapter in the diplomatic relations between India and Ukraine. Bureau Report, DD India.
During his key visit, the Prime Minister also interacted with Ukrainian students who are learning Hindi language at the School of Oriental Studies in Kyiv. The PM appreciated the scholarship of the students and their contribution to promoting mutual understanding between the people of the two countries. He also commended their efforts to bring Indian culture and history closer to the Ukrainian people.
सब पहली बार घटित हो रहा है तो बड़ी आशा से देख रहे हैं इसको और ऐसा हम बहुत चाहते हैं कि सांस्कृतिक संबंध राजनीतिक संबंध दृढ़ होते जाए।
यूक्रेन के लिए ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है क्योंकि ये पहली बार है और मुझे बहुत आशा है कि इस मुलाकात के बाद लोगों को ज़्यादातर लोगों को ये पता हो जाएगा कि वास्तव में यूक्रेन और भारत के बीच अच्छा रिश्ता बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है और मुझे आशा है कि भविष्य में यूक्रेन में ज़्यादातर लोग हिंदी सीखने चाहेंगे।
मुझे हिंदी बहुत पसंद है क्योंकि भारत एक दिलचस्प और बहुत सुंदर देश है।
Let's now tell you a bit more about the 4 indigenously built Bhishma cubes which Prime Minister Modi handed over to President Zelensky in Kyiv. Now, these are portable hospitals which have both medicines and equipment for the first line of care for all medical situations, including military conflicts. It can be set up within minutes and can be used for treating about 200 people in 72 hours. Take a look.
Have you thought that an entire hospital can be built from this cube that looks like a matchbox? Yes, this is the world's smallest portable emergency hospital built by India, which is completely made by indigenous technology. The Bhisham Cube's advanced facilities and skilled medical personnel ensure that the patient receives hospital quality care on site, stabilizing his or her condition. Bharat Health Initiative for Sahyog, Hit and Maitri is tailored to treat up to 200 casualties, emphasizing rapid response and comprehensive care. The aid cube is equipped with several innovative tools designed to enhance disaster response and medical support during emergencies. It integrates artificial intelligence or AI and data analytics, facilitates effective coordination, real-time monitoring and efficient management of medical services in the field. The whole unit contains 72 easily transportable components that can be conveniently carried by hand, cycle or even drone, providing unmatched flexibility. In the face of mass casualty incidents or MCIs, where requirements range from basic aid to advanced medical and surgical care, the aid cube stands out with its ability to be deployed within an astonishing 12 minutes. This swift deployment capability is crucial as it effectively bridges the crucial time gap from primary care to definitive care, potentially saving numerous lives in the golden hour of emergencies. This hospital can be run completely with the help of solar energy and batteries. Equipped with testing lab, ventilator, X-ray, ultrasound machine, this hospital has everything that a modern hospital should have. Be it a fracture, head injury, bleeding or respiratory problems or the need for just antibiotics and painkillers, this hospital has it all.
ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा हम जानें बचाना चाहते हैं क्योंकि सबसे बड़ा हमारा मोटिव है एवरी लाइफ मैटर्स। हर एक जान बहुत कीमती है और हमारी ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जानें शुरू के 1 घंटे में चली जाती हैं, जिसे हम गोल्डन आवर बोलते हैं। आप देखेंगे स्टिकरिंग भी करी गई है। स्टिकर्स पे इम्पोर्टेंटली नाम लिखा है, नंबर लिखा है, नंबर ऑफ आइटम्स की क्वांटिटी क्या है और क्या किट है उसके अंदर। तो ये बहुत ज़्यादा यूज़र फ्रेंडली बन जाता है।
There is a QR code on every box of the portable emergency hospital which can be scanned to find out which box contains medicines for which disease and what their expiry date is. Apart from this, they also have RFID tags, which can work without the internet. What is locked in which cube is written above, but if the information cannot be read, then it can be found in a minute by scanning with RFID. The hospital has been designed in such a way that even a doctor or a paramedical staff can prepare it. Designed to withstand various conditions, they are robust, waterproof and lightweight, suitable for airdrops and ground transportation. The project plays a crucial role in minimizing the impact of disasters on communities by providing immediate healthcare services, thereby increasing community resilience. The deployment of Arogya Maitri Disaster Management Cube, BSHMs, in Ayodhya for the Pran Pratishta ceremony is a practical example of the project's application, demonstrating India's commitment to integrating modern technology and innovation in public health and disaster management. Bureau Report, DD India.
And we'll return to this top story with an expert guest a little later in the show, but we're moving on for the time being. India and the US have inked two key military pacts during the 4-day visit of Defence Minister Rajnath Singh. During the course of his visit, the Indian Defence Minister has been welcomed by his American counterpart Lloyd Austin as well. Here's a report.
India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh arrived in the United States on a 4-day visit starting Thursday at the invitation of the US Secretary of Defence Lloyd Austin. Soon after the arrival at Washington, the Defence Minister addressed the Indian diaspora, where he called India and US together a formidable force which can ensure peace, prosperity and stability in the world.
आज इंटरनेशनल फोरम पर भारत कुछ बोलता है, सारी दुनिया कान खोलकर सुनती है भारत बोल क्या है। यह भारत की हैसियत बनी है। पहले भारत की इकॉनमी फ्रेजाइल 5 में खड़ी थी, आज हम फेबुलस 5 में आकर खड़े हुए। मॉर्गन स्टैनली इसका दावा है कि 2027 आते आते भारत को की इकॉनमी को दुनिया की टॉप 3 कंट्रीज में आने से कोई रोक नहीं सकता। टॉप 3 इकॉनमी।
On the first day of the visit, India and US signed 2 memorandums of understanding. The Security of Supplies Arrangement, or SOSA, enables both countries to acquire industrial resources they need to resolve unanticipated supply chain disruptions in the defense sector. The US has signed this with 18 other nations. America and India have now agreed to provide reciprocal priority support for goods and services that promote national defense. This includes priority delivery for contracts, subcontracts, or orders from the companies. Under the changing geopolitical landscape, India and the US have found in each other a natural ally. The US has for years been one of the biggest arms exporter to India, and now with the rise of India's defense manufacturing industry, the US has also emerged as the biggest importer of made-in-India weapons. A testimony to the bonhomie between the two global powerhouses, which is likely to deepen after this visit. Akshay Dongre for DD India.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Despite all domestic and international pressure, the West Asia conflict is not showing any signs of cooling down. And Sudan is facing a severe humanitarian crisis with 658 cases of cholera in the past month alone.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Double Olympic medalist Manu Bhaker is with us. You have achieved something which has never happened before. Tell us, how big are these medals for you?
The value of the medal, I mean, coming from Tokyo, definitely it means a big deal for me.
Tell us the role of the government also, Manu.
Khelo India and top schemes are good.
You also met Prime Minister Narendra Modi after you won the medals. Must have been a proud feeling to meet him.
So I've met him a couple of times and it's always inspiring. It always motivates us.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell has indicated an imminent rate cut at the Jackson Hole Annual Economic Conference. Powell said that the time has come for policy to adjust. The direction of travel is clear and the timing and pace of rate cuts will depend on incoming data, the evolving outlook and the balance of risks.
For policy to adjust. The direction of travel is clear, and the timing and pace of rate cuts will depend on incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risks.
And ED India's Nick Harper joins us from Washington, D.C. for more on what's happened at Jackson Hole. Hello, Nick. Now, there seems to be a lot of ifs and buts in what the Fed chair has said. Does it really mean that an easing cycle will be initiated in September?
Gautam, I think it seems to be a case of when, not if, because these really have been the most definitive remarks from the Federal Reserve so far that a rate cut is coming. But you're right, there is no precise timing in anything that the Fed Chair Jerome Powell has said. And there's been no precise details as to the size of the cut. Would it be a 0.25% cut, a 0.5%, 0.75%? What we do know, though, is that Jerome Powell said the time has now come for policy to adjust. He also said that the timing and the pace of rate cuts will depend on incoming data, the evolving outlook, and the balance of risk. Essentially, there is that caveat that if things happen over the next few weeks, they may not cut rates at the September meeting. But I think what we're seeing here is Jerome Powell very much laying the groundwork for that cut to happen. Remember, global markets don't like surprises. They wouldn't like it if there was suddenly a rate cut without any signalling. And this is what this is from Jerome Powell, signalling that a cut is coming. Because here in the US, there were 13 rate hikes over the space of about a year and a quarter, from March 2022 to July 2023. We're now at a 23-year high for interest rates, hovering around 5.25 to 5.5%. They've been there for more than a year. And I guess all eyes will now be on the next time that the Federal Reserve meet and could potentially cut rates. It's their two-day policy meeting on September the 17th and 18th. In the middle of the afternoon on September the 18th, we may find out that the Fed have finally decided to go with that long-anticipated rate cut.
All right. And with the reports that are coming, it seems that the US markets have taken this quite well. But what sort of an overall picture has Jerome Powell painted about the US economy, especially related to the job scenario?
Well, overall, I mean, he seemed to be saying that things are doing much better, saying that inflation has fallen, which it has, from around 7% back in June 2022. That was the highest level that we'd seen in the US for more than 40 years. It's now come down to about 2.5%. But Jerome Powell is very much shifting focus now, saying that it's all about trying to protect the job market. I guess the problem is that what the Fed has been trying to do is this balancing act, raising interest rates to try and cool inflation. Of course, the result of that is that companies are then more reluctant to hire. That in turn tightens the jobs market and means more unemployment. So that balancing act is trying to cool inflation on the one hand, raising unemployment as a direct consequence, but doing so without triggering a recession. Powell now saying we will do everything we can on the jobs market to try and make it stronger. And he did say that he feels it's cooled from that overheated state. We're now seeing unemployment at about 4.3%. Powell's saying that that is a result not of more layoffs, but rather a slower pace of hiring. So they are now super focused on the jobs market. He feels that indications are pointing towards a soft landing as opposed to a hard landing, which of course would be a recession here in the US.
Let's hope things stay the course. The recession bogey had come up about a week or 10 days ago, but that's what it was, just a bogey. I'm glad that hasn't really borne out, and let's hope that things stay on the course that Jerome Powell says they will be, and it will lead to a rate cut because that's perhaps what the US economy needs and the world also needs at this point. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment. Nick. Now, despite all domestic and international pressure, the West Asia conflict is not showing any signs of cooling down. The call for peace, however, has been ringing out at different levels across the globe. It was also heard loud and clear on the final day of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. Democratic presidential candidate Kamala Harris said it's high time for a ceasefire and hostage release deal in Israel's war in Gaza. Here's more on the conflict.
United States military and financial support for Israel in war against Hamas emerged as a prominent issue on the last day of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. On Thursday, pro-Palestinian demonstrators took to the streets, marching with signs and banners while chanting slogans to protest U.S. support for Israel in this war.
We're gathered to make our voices heard first and foremost, to end the genocide against the Palestinian people that the Democratic Party for 11 months now almost has supported unequivocally. And so we're here to make the demand to end the genocide against the Palestinian people.
As an American Jew, specifically, I am here demanding an arms embargo on the Israeli military at this moment as the only practical step towards safety for people in Palestine, in Gaza, and around the world.
Vice presidential candidate Kamala Harris issued a rousing call to end the war in Gaza as she accepted the Democratic nomination on Thursday to run for the U.S. presidential elections. Harris delivered a pledge to secure Israel, bring the hostages home from Gaza, and end the war in Palestine enclave.
Now is the time to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done. I will always stand up for Israel's right to defend itself. President Biden and I are working to end this war such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination.
Meanwhile, as per media reports, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant held a joint situation assessment overnight with his US counterpart Lloyd Austin, reviewing regional development and threats. The top United Nations humanitarian official for Gaza says that the successive Israeli evacuation order has displaced 90% of the Palestinian territory's 2.1 million residents since the Israel-Hamas war began in October last year. The UN's Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, says it will begin vaccinating Gaza's children for polio at the end of this month as fears of an outbreak of the disease looms large. Bureau Report, DD India.
Sudan is facing a severe humanitarian crisis with 658 cases of cholera in the past month alone, mostly in Al-Qatarif and Kassala due to floods and a refugee influx. The World Health Organization had pre-positioned supplies and requested additional vaccines for the rainy season. The Sovereignty Council's decision to open the outbreak crossing from Chad to aid Darfur and Kordofan has also been welcomed. The conflict has worsened health conditions and led to a severe hunger crisis with 25.6 million people facing acute hunger.
We have 5 states which are impacted, namely Khartoum, Jazeera, Gadaref, Kassala, and River Nile. But of course, the burden in these different states is different. Like in Kassala, we have 473 cases. In Gadaref, we have 110. In Jazeera, 51. In River Nile, 13. And Khartoum, 11 cases. Of course, WHO has prepositioned a lot of supplies in preparation of the rainy season because we were expecting that some outbreaks, disease outbreaks may emerge.
Let's now take you across live to DD India's Leon Sanyenge, joining us from Kampala for more on this story. Now, good evening to you, Leon. How serious is this cholera outbreak this time around, and how helpful will the reopening of the outbreak crossing be in combating this and other diseases gripping the region as well?
Well, indeed, it's a very serious situation in Sudan. And just like you've heard, the numbers are all but going up and hitting slightly over 600 reported cases. Over the last 1 month, approximately 28 people have been reported dead, of course, under the crisis now. But definitely, there is a very huge concern that with the changing season, July, August is now a rainy season in Sudan, that could only escalate the current crisis. And this, of course, is hitting more concern within the camp areas, and especially within the Zamzam camp in the Darfur area, but then also in Kassala, where most of the cases have been reported. So definitely it is a very huge concern, a very huge problem, but even still now it is the necessities on trying to de-escalate this particular crisis. And therein, of course, is, and like you've asked, the access to food and non-food relief coming in as of within the last few hours, where the Ade border crossing was finally opened after 6-month closure. So that could offer some relief therein, with access to basic medicines and healthcare, and of course with the cholera vaccination campaign that's going on. So yes, the efforts therein are to de-escalate the crisis, and hopefully sooner than later should be able to at least be mitigated.
All right. Now, but aren't all the disease-fighting efforts just about patchwork repair, considering the root causes lie elsewhere in conflict, displacement and lack of response to the arising situation from both home and abroad?
Well, it's important to understand the kind of crisis or health crisis that Sudan is undergoing. This current cholera outbreak is not the first that they've had within the period of the conflict. It is actually the second now. So that in itself spells much of the efforts that have been conducted to try and prevent any occurrence. But there's much to say about the breakdown of infrastructure, the health services therein, because indeed of the conflict. And this has not offered much in creating a situation that can help in trying to de-escalate the outbreak itself and many other diseases that are biting into Sudan. But it says a lot. Even still, the international partners therein are trying to do just as much, not just to as patchwork, but to try and limit the escalation of the crisis. Of course, awareness campaigns are being conducted, surveillance, contact tracing, all these are methods and, of course, measures therein that are being conducted to ensure that it is put under control. But yes, the conflict in itself is not helping as much, and even still, there's little promise, as we've seen lately with the breakdown in peace talks, to try and put the guns to silence.
Well, let's hope that adequate measures are taken to ease the suffering and lives are saved. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Leon. Now, over 25 people have been killed after a bus plunged into a river in Nepal's Tanahon district. 16 people have been rescued so far, as search operations have been underway to retrieve others. Nepal Army personnel received help from locals at the site to save the survivors. Ladders and ropes were used to pull out the injured from the river. The bus carrying 40 passengers was registered in India and was headed to Nepal's capital, Kathmandu. Let's now get you a look at some other stories making news around the world as well. The government of Nepal has decided to lift the ban on social networking site TikTok. The Ministry of Communications and Information Technology of Nepal also prepared a proposal to treat all social networking sites on equal footing. The government imposed a ban on TikTok in November 2023. Nha Trang in Vietnam ranks among the top 5 diving destinations in Asia. The city earns its high ranking due to its warm waters and colorful marine ecosystems. Halmun Marine is a protected area which stands out as a top diving location. This attractive destination is known for recreational activities and underwater exploration in Southeast Asia and Asia as a whole. Police dismantled a marijuana plantation in Spain that included more than 1,500 plants on Friday, weighing about 3,000 kilograms. Drone footage released by the authorities showed the marijuana plantation in Losa de la Vera in an Extremadura region. Police have arrested a 29-year-old man over an alleged crime against public health for cultivation or processing of drugs. Thai authorities are racing against time to recover more remains from the site of a small plane crash that occurred this Thursday in Chachoengsao Province, Bang Pakong district, while experts on the scene have confirmed the aircraft was not equipped with a black box. The plane was heading to an island in Trat Province. It disappeared from the radar screens near Bang Pakong district. And still to come on DD India News Hour. India's space surged rockets as the nation celebrates its first National Space Day. India's Niti Aayog in its latest report outlines a plan to transform the Mumbai metropolitan region into a global economic hub. And Mumbai port launches several key projects.
On the Voice of Global South this week, the Philippines stand up to China's bullying. An old, rusty warship of World War II vintage exposes chinks in the Chinese armor. From troubled past to promising future, a look at Timor-Leste's journey over the last 2 decades. And will there be a change of approach on climate change at COP29? Tune in at 7 p.m. IST and 13:30 hours GMT on Saturday, August 24, only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Gautam Roy, and before we go any further, another look at our top stories. Prime Minister Narendra Modi holds bilateral talks with Ukraine's President Zelensky in Kyiv. 4 pacts inked. The PM reiterates India's willingness to contribute to facilitate an early return of peace. US Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell indicates an imminent rate cut at the Jackson Hole Annual Economic Conference. Says time has come for policy to adjust. And the World Health Organization says its partners can start buying Mpox vaccines before they are approved by the UN Health Agency to get the inoculations to Africa faster. And before we take up the key takeaways of PM Modi's Ukraine visit, we now tell you that during his meeting with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky described the encounter as historic. He also expressed his gratitude to Prime Minister Modi for his presence.
Really very good meeting, and this historic one, and for us it's very important that the first Prime Minister from your very big country, and during all our history, all our independent history, so it's during last 33 years, almost 33, because tomorrow it will be the 33rd Independent Day. So this is historic moment for our nations. It's not about me or Prime Minister Modi, it's not about personalities. That's why I think that it's more important that both of us. It's about both our nations. And that's why I think it's historic moment, and I'm very thankful to Prime Minister for coming.
And let's now bring in our expert guest on the subject of Prime Minister Modi's successful and landmark visit to Ukraine. Ajay Bisaria, former senior diplomat, joins us live. Good evening to you. Mr. Bisaria, what do you make of how this visit has gone in terms of not just how there are 4 pacts that have been inked, which is significant considering the current environment, but also how the leaders have really connected with each other as well and try to put center stage the message of peace?
Yes, I would say that this has been an example of successful peace diplomacy. It's something new to India. India hasn't been doing this kind of thing for a long time. And I think it's a new experiment, a new phase in India's diplomacy. And I think all the events and all the optics were very positive today. So I think we have reason to believe that this was a a very successful visit and a successful exercise of peace diplomacy.
What does it tell the world? Because the world had been looking very closely at how this visit really goes in the context of the kind of visit that Prime Minister Modi had to Moscow about 6 weeks back.
That's right. I think we should look at both visits as part of a piece. There was a visit to Moscow and then the visit to Ukraine are part of the same kind of exercise in peace diplomacy, because the Prime Minister first went to Moscow and then to Kiev, and he gave messages that were very similar or, kind of mirroring each other, which is that he gave a gentle nudge to both leaders to not try and solve the problem on the battlefield, to sit down and talk to each other, and to say that if they needed any help from India, India would be willing.
And many people are describing this as an example of India first foreign policy as well, and also the fact that India has chosen to remain strategically independent, and that it is part of that context where you have been an envoy yourself, that he went to Poland first and then from there he went to Kyiv, and before that in July he also went to Austria's capital Vienna. He's focusing on a particular region at this stage for India's own interests as well.
Absolutely. I think one other readout of this visit is that it's part of India's Central European diplomacy. India, as you said, Prime Minister Modi visited Austria after 41 years, 41 years since the last Prime Minister had visited Austria, and 45 years since the last Prime Minister visited Poland. So visits to Austria, Poland and Ukraine, even if you keep the war aside, are important. That there is a foray by India into a region that is often overlooked, which is Central Europe. When we talk of Europe, we tend to talk of the UK, Germany, France, Italy, and perhaps Russia, but not really include Central Europe, which is the new Europe. And therefore, in India's approach to the world, India is covering regions that it had earlier perhaps neglected or not been able to focus on. But the focus of this bit of diplomacy certainly was in trying to make a point about the global conflict, in trying to nudge the warring parties towards peace.
And what do you make of the 4 pacts that have been inked? They range from agriculture to other kinds of assistance as well, also cultural exchanges. Now, how can this be used to further strengthen ties, especially where trade is concerned with Ukraine, because it used to be at a much higher level before the global pandemic hit, then came the conflict. So that is something that has left a lot of ground to cover to get to par at that level which existed pre-COVID.
Well, I would read this as a signal that once the war is over, in the post-war phase, we would try to get back to business as usual. These are the kind of pacts that are always under discussion between countries, and taking advantage of a high-level visit, they are quickly finalized and signed. But I won't read too much into these pacts. These would be the standard fare of diplomacy. The more important point is that this is the first ever visit by an Indian Prime Minister into an active conflict zone, and taking a certain risk for peace, taking a certain risk for making a point that India as a global player has an interest in getting peace or getting these conflicts resolved peacefully.
And Ambassador Bisare, since you said once the war is over, I'm tempted to ask you, is there a situation emerging, and perhaps Prime Minister Modi has travelled to Kyiv, I don't know if he sensed it or not, before that he went to Moscow as well, like we just talked about, that the war is heading towards some sort of a resolution, if it's possible at all?
Well, the current reading of the war is that it is dangerously escalating. So when you exercise or try peace diplomacy, there's never a good time, because there's never a good time in a war. You never know when you've planned the visit ahead of time, when you get there, whether there would be an escalation or a de-escalation. So, you've seen on the ground that Ukraine has made moves within Russia and the Kursk region. Russia, on its part, has made moves within to Ukraine's east in the Donetsk region. Both sides seem to be sort of preparing themselves for a possible dialogue or settlement where they negotiate from a position of strength, where they could exchange territory, they could exchange prisoners. So my own guess would be that this conflict will head towards an end, towards resolution by the end of the year. The larger geopolitics will play into it, the elections in the United States and so on. And what India is simply saying right now is, we request you to consider getting on the negotiation table and to talk to each other, because peace is not in your peace is something that is in your interest. It is in the interest of India. It is in the interest of the global South, and it's in the interest of the world. So I think we should read this as a limited foray to make a point about moving towards peace, and not necessarily look at it towards a move towards a very quick conflict resolution.
Yes, certainly a very consistent and direct message both in Moscow and in Kyiv from Prime Minister Modi. Thank you so much for joining us and talking about it, Ambassador Bisaria.
Thank you.
Now, the World Health Organization has said that its partners such as Gavi and UNICEF can start buying Mpox vaccines before they are approved by the UN Health Agency in a bid to get inoculations to Africa faster as the continent battles an escalating outbreak of the virus. While Mpox virus is rapidly spreading within Africa, it has also been discovered in Asia and Europe. More in this report.
A new, potentially more deadly strain of Mpox virus is rapidly spreading within Africa and has been discovered in Asia and Europe. So far, 4 countries, Sweden, Thailand, Philippines and Pakistan, have reported Mpox cases outside the African continent. 14 countries in Africa have reported cases. On Wednesday, health officials in Argentina ruled out a suspected case of Mpox virus on quarantine cargo ship that was traveling along a key commodities route. Authorities had quarantined the ship in the Parana River due to the case of a suspected Mpox infection on board as a precaution. Countries in Asia have ramped up precautions and have moved to tighten their containment measures. In India, as Mpox viruses have been detected in the neighbouring Pakistan, health departments also took measures to ensure it was ready to deal with the situation if any case surfaced in the country.
The risk of large spread in India is unlikely as of now. We will take the thing forward on a case-to-case basis. If we start having cases, we have alerted our points of entry for certain individuals who might report these cases, and then they may be referred to designated hospitals. We've discussed with states also. We've asked them to establish designated institutions for isolation and management of such cases as and when required.
Thailand, which confirmed its first case of the strain on Thursday, will tighten surveillance and screening measures at its international airports. Singapore has begun screening incoming passengers at airports for Mpox symptoms. Temperature and visual screening are being carried out at Changi and Seletar airports as a precautionary measure against Mpox. Meanwhile, the president of the Central African country, Democratic Republic of Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, has allowed the first disbursement of $10 million to fight the country's Mpox outbreak. DRC hopes to receive its first dose of an Mpox vaccine by next week, following promises from the United States and Japan to help it fight its outbreak.
I sincerely hope that the vaccine will arrive next week, so I can give you a rough idea of the timing. I hope that the vaccine will arrive next week.
More than 1,000 new infections have been recorded across the country over the past week. A new strain of the virus discovered in the country's east earlier this year has been blamed for the rapid spread. Bureau Report, DD India.
Chris Okamringa joins us live from Kinshasa for more on this. Hello to you, Chris. How helpful would the DRC president's approval of the release of $10 million to fight the outbreak be? How will this money be put to use?
Yes, according to authorities in the DRC, this money is going to be spent in deploying health workers across the country. The DRC is the second largest country in Africa with about 100 million, more than 100 million people. You know, it has an area the size of Western Europe. So deploying all these health workers across the country is going to be a very huge undertaking because of the challenges the DRC has, the poor road network, and the conflict that is happening in the east of the country. They're also going to use this money for treating patients across the country, conducting tests on suspected cases of Mpox, and also doing tracking down people who came into contact with those who have been confirmed to have Mpox. That is a very huge task that they're going to have because people keep traveling from one province to another on a regular basis in the DRC. So the government is going to, deploy all these health workers to track down people, isolate them, and prevent the disease from spreading. The government had earlier announced that they required $49 million to carry out this coordination of the response in the DRC. And the government has just released $10 million and said that they will release more later. Some other donors have also chipped in. We've heard from the UK government saying they're going to give $3.5 million, and other countries are also going to follow suit to help the DRC to contain this outbreak that is spreading very fast across the country.
And there are indications now that the region will soon have access to vaccines as well. Now, is the world moving in the direction of getting a handle on the spread of Mpox?
Yes, first of all, scientists have said that the vaccines that are supposed to arrive in the DRC next week are proved very effective in dealing with the global outbreak of Mpox that happened in 2022. And so there is hope that the arrival of these vaccines will help scale back this viral disease that is spreading very fast. But there's one big challenge in the DRC. See, during the COVID-19 pandemic, a lot of misinformation and conspiracy theories were being spread in the country about these vaccines. And so people still have very fresh memories about that, and it led to a lot of hesitancy, resistance in some parts of the country. And so the health workers who are going to roll out these vaccines will have to come up with a very effective communication strategy to convince people to accept to take these shots because there are communities in the DRC that believe that Mpox is linked to witchcraft. And so when people get the disease, they go to traditional healers and religious leaders to get prayed for instead of going to doctors. So there's a lot that the DRC authorities with the international health organizations have to do to convince people to take these vaccines in order to reduce the cases from spreading further.
Let's hope that rapid progress is made on that front and getting control on this disease which has spread a lot of panic across the world. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Chris. Let's now take a look at some other stories making the news around the country as well. Union Minister for Youth Affairs and Sports, Dr. Mansukh Mandavia, met the Indian athletes who took part in the World Boccia Challenger 2024 in Cairo in Egypt last month. Mandavia said that he's proud of the athletes who shone at this global contest. The 10th edition of India-Sri Lanka joint military exercise Mitra Shakti is ongoing and it's in its final leg in Sri Lanka. During the exercise, the Indian and Sri Lankan forces have bolstered their capabilities and fostered a deeper strategic partnership in counter-terrorism operations. Providing relief to Tripura flood hit, the central government has approved release of 40 crore rupees in advance for the affected people. 11 NDRF teams, 3 columns of the Indian Army and 4 helicopters of the Indian Air Force have been deployed by the centre, and they're already assisting the state government. Seasonal monsoon rains have lashed major parts of the state, where National Disaster Response Force has been deployed. Nagaland has begun with its second June Fair 2024. The fair is being held at Chichama village under Kohima district on Friday. Organized by the Chichamiafi Michi Krotho, the fair will witness exhibition cum sale featuring Chichama cuisine, exhibition of local Jhum products, agricultural tools and equipment. India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar has delivered a special address at the National Forensic Sciences University in Gujarat. During his address, the VP said that science provides the tools to uncover truth and ensures that justice is served. And the VP also participated in the 8th International Dharma Conference in Gujarat's University in Ahmedabad. The Vice President highlighted the relevance of Dharma and Dhamma in today's world. He said that the great nation was bled in 1975 with the proclamation of draconian emergency. And it's also been a time to celebrate many first milestones India has achieved in various domains. India's tremendous space surge is marked by 2 remarkable missions, Chandrayaan 3 and Aditya L1. Successful launch of Chandrayaan 3 made India the first nation in the world to successfully land on the south pole of the moon, while mission Aditya L1, India's first space-based mission to study the sun, is also making great strides. India is on course to mark its territory on the sun as well as the moon. DD India's Sakal Bhatt gets us this report.
4, 3, 2, 1. 14th July 2023. This date marks India's successful soft landing near the moon's south pole, establishing India as the first one to achieve this remarkable feat. The feat of landing a spacecraft in such proximity to the lunar south pole. Chandrayaan 3 is India's third lunar mission and second attempt at achieving soft landing on the moon's surface. On July 14, 2023 at 2:35 p.m., Chandrayaan took off from Satish Dhawan Space Center in Sriharikota. The spacecraft seamlessly entered lunar orbit on 5th of August 2023. The historic moment unfolded when the lander made a successful touchdown near the lunar south pole on August 23, 2023. Chandrayaan 3 is a 3-component mission consisting of propulsion module, lander module and rover module. Successful launch of Chandrayaan 3 resulted in major findings of the mission. Chandra's surface thermophysical experiment measured temperatures reaching 70 degrees centigrade. Chandrayaan 3 is significant for the Indian space program, undoubtedly. It makes India part of the elite group of nations, Russia, the US and China, with demonstrated lunar soft landing capability, showcasing its leadership in space technology, including positioning India as a global hub in the new space economy. The reusable launch vehicle technology aids in cost reduction for future launches as well. Within 2 months of achieving a spectacular feat of landing at closest proximity of moon, Indian space scientists took another giant leap. It was time to get as close to the sun. September 2nd, 2023 marked yet another major breakthrough accomplishment for ISRO with the launching of Aditya L1 from Satish Dhawan Space Center at Sriharikota. Aditya L1 is the first Indian mission to study the sun from space, designed to study the sun's dynamics. Aditya L1 spacecraft is equipped with 7 payloads that will observe the sun's photosphere chromosphere. The mission aims to provide valuable insights into the sun's behavior, which will help scientists better understand space weather and its impact on Earth. Aditya L1 spacecraft was inserted in its targeted halo orbit on January 6, 2024. And after a journey of 127 days, the spacecraft reached the L1 point approximately 15 lakh kilometers from Earth. On July 2nd, Aditya L1 spacecraft completed its first halo orbit around the sun, a complex maneuver that required precise navigation and control. Aditya L1 instruments will provide valuable data to help scientists understand sun behavior better. India's groundbreaking mission Chandrayaan-3 uncovering Moon's long-guarded secret and Aditya L1 helping discover Sun's various dimensions, thus setting the tone for India's mega space movement. As India celebrates its 78th Independence Day, its space prowess continues to cruise ahead to rule skies and beyond. Sakal Bhatt's report for DD India.
And Sakal Bhatt also caught up with Professor Satyanarayan Chakrabarti from IIT Madras, who's helmed various high-profile startups, including 3D printed rocket launched by ISRO. Professor Chakrabarti speaks on India's growing space powers and space revolution in the last one decade. Listen in.
On the very first National Space Day, Professor Narayan, how do you see India's space surge, particularly in the last decade? You know, the humble beginnings of 1960s, there are very interesting visuals of Indian scientists operating from a very first mission control room in Kerala and transporting these rocket parts in bicycle and bullock cart till finally landing on Moon's South Pole. What a fantastic journey.
Yeah. So if I were to actually hop, skip and jump from the humble beginnings to the last decade, I would say there are essentially three epochs. The 1963 to 1970, the Vikram Sarabhai years, when you actually saw all of those bicycle rides and bullock cart rides and all of that stuff. And then the 1970 onwards to, let's say, about the early 1990s, where Satish Dhawan came in, and he actually made a organization out of ISRO, in my view. And he's the one who actually streamlined the whole process and figured out the plan for the next couple of decades. And he's the one who actually got the SLV-3 and the ASLV off the mark. The ASLV used to actually be a lot of failure. SLV used to be a failure. But I was actually a school kid and a college kid at that time. And what I found even then was they were actually planning for the PSLV. And the ASLV failures were what I call as well-crafted failures from where they would learn how to do the PSLV right. We are actually now marching towards like about 60 consecutive successful launches, a record that nobody else has.
Public policy think tank Niti Aayog in its latest report outlines a plan to transform the Mumbai metropolitan region into a global economic hub, aiming to double Mumbai's GDP in 5 years. The strategy focuses on 7 key sectors, including developing Mumbai as a global services hub, enhancing affordable housing, boosting tourism and expanding port infrastructure. India's Minister for Ports, Shipping and Waterways, Sarbanand Sonowal, inaugurated several key projects at Mumbai Port Authority on Friday. The minister said, under the visionary leadership of Prime Minister Modi, India will become one of the leading maritime nations among top 10 countries. He added that to achieve this, Indian ports are being developed with world-class modernization, mechanization and digitization. And now let's get you some sporting updates as well. India's table tennis player Archana Kamath, who represented India at the Paris Olympics, has decided to step away from the sport. Archana has opted to pursue higher education abroad instead of continuing with her table tennis career. The 24-year-old Archana was part of the Indian women's TT team that reached the quarterfinals for the first time at the Olympics. However, India's campaign came to an end after suffering a 3-1 loss to Germany. Archana secured the only win over world number 38 Shan Cheona with the last 8 for India. Double Olympic medalist Manu Bhakar has spoken exclusively with my colleague Abhishek Mahajan. She talks about the disappointment of Tokyo to the joy of Paris and what these medals mean to her. You can watch the full interview at these timings, and that's on Saturday, tomorrow on DD India only.
Congratulations from all of us.
Thank you.
You have achieved something which has never happened before. Tell us, how big are these medals for you?
Honestly, I think we always realize after the history has been made.
Yeah.
And the same was the thing for me also. Earlier, I was not aware of the facts and how many medals one person from India has won in previous games. I was not aware of it. And the value of the medal, I mean, coming from Tokyo, definitely it means a big deal for me because I was world number 2 during the times of Tokyo, and how the expectations were, I was not able to deliver it to that. But this time around, I mean, the planning was way better, and the training was way better, and I was prepared in a much better way this time.
And you can watch the full interview on Saturday at 7:30 p.m. IST as well as 1400 GMT. And that's all we have in this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can also, if you're on the go, get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. You can scan the QR code on the screen and get the app now. And we'll be back with more news and updates as a break here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.